Hi, Bill. How are you?
Hello, Mark. Here we are at second podcast again today.
Second podcast out here at Federal Mills, sitting in the offices of the Bendigo Bank.
Yes, and what a great location it is out here in North Geelong.
It's fantastic to come out here and see how well it's been restored and then turned into something new. So we just had lunch in 1915, I think is the restaurant next door, and amazing the way the big old cranes are still there, and it's a great atmosphere.
Yeah, and it's not often we go out to lunch, I might add.
It isn't.
But we were the guests of our guest.
We were
today.
the guests of our guest.
And our guest today is Tim Clarke, who's the Regional Manager of Bendigo Bank, or Western Region Manager?
That's right, yeah, Bendigo Bank, Business Banking, Western Victoria.
Good. Welcome, Tim. We'll look forward to hearing your story. And Mark, what about the presentation we just heard?
It was excellent. It was excellent. I can't remember the gentleman's name.
David Robertson.
David Robertson, who's the economist for
Bendigo
Bank.
Yes.
He was really good. Gave us a bit of an overview of where he sees the world going. Like all economists, he puts up the 10 things he predicted last year, and he got 8 out of the 10 right. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. But it looks like interest rates will stay where they are until possibly early next year in his eyes.
Well, it's interesting, Mark, because our previous podcast was just you and I chatting about what we see in the economy at the moment and things in general, and we actually spoke about the same thing, didn't we?
We did.
That the rest of 2024 for many will be a year of survival. But we're really looking forward to 2025.
We are.
All right.
So, Tim.
And it's before we start, though, but two consultants that don't go out for lunch much.
No, we don't.
You're bucking the trend there, aren't you?
Have you seen our waistlines? Right.
Yeah. So, Tim, we'll start with you. The question we always ask is, where did you go to primary school? So, start the journey for us.
Yeah, where I went to primary school, Point Lonsdale is where I grew up.
Yep.
Yeah, so idyllic, pretty lifestyle down on the coast there. And then as you get a little bit older, you realise you're a little bit sort of sheltered from what goes on in the world, but beautiful place, and my mum and my sister still live there now, so I get down and try and visit whenever I can.
Are you a golfer?
Am I a golfer? I'm a mad golfer.
Because they've got a great golf course
pretty
down
obsessed, there. And it's interesting you say that, because without you knowing, I was on the board there for 10 years for our redevelopment. So really proud of what we've built there.
It's a good use, isn't it, with the housing gone around it?
It is, and the link for me is my dad was actually the greenkeeper there for my childhood. So I was actually, when I was born and came home from hospital, it was into the house that was behind the old, what might have been the 13th hole in the day. It's now gone. But pretty much born on the golf course. Well, so I've got no excuse for not being a professional other than skill and temperament.
I reckon
that's the problem.
Yeah, well, funny enough, I used to be a member.
Oh, okay.
Right? And, I was living in Melbourne, and I used to drive down at 5 o'clock on Saturday mornings to play in the Saturday comp.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have been on your own either.
No, that's right. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, so from primary school, where was high school?
What is now Ballarat Secondary College was Queenscliff High School. Sadly, the campus is no longer there. It's one of those
bit of an orphan.
One of those schools that got eaten up. Class of '92. So I'm giving away my age there. Year 12, and we were the last group to go through as Queenscliff High School.
Oh, that would have been
before it transformed to Ballarat. Yeah.
Big year, isn't it?
Was that a sad end of year?
I wouldn't say it was sad. I think you're ready to move on by the end of high school, but it certainly there's a degree of uncertainty about what's next. And from down on the coast at the time, people did tend to scatter because you'd have people going to uni in Melbourne, Geelong, people going to trades, or I ended up in Ballarat at uni up there. So there is a bit of a split, but we've got a really strong cohort. Our reunions are every 10 years are really well attended. Yeah. And they turn into, you think, I'm going to go there for a quiet night, tends to be a really big night, an early morning get home. But there's a real fondness for people in that cohort from 92, and the catch-ups are big. And that's what I love about being in the Geelong region is I'll go to the local footy or cricket or whatever it may be, or GMHBA Stadium and often bump into people from that era. It's good
Now,
fun.
tell me, in your final years of school, did you have a part-time job?
I did.
And what was your first
We always
job?
had a job. My first job was a paper round, old-fashioned
Oh,
paper
here
round.
we go
Everybody,
again.
where's those kids? now?
Those jobs are gone. So when that started, I reckon that started about year 8 at Point
Yeah.
Lonsdale. Had to be down the paper shop 5:45, load up your crate, off you go. $15 a week
Yep.
was the pay, 6 days a
Yeah.
week. And then you had to resist the temptation in the morning to grab a Mars bar and a drink or anything because that would come out of your pay.
Yep.
So some weeks you'd get $3 for all that effort.
That's brilliant. And when you were finishing up high school, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do?
Very much so. Wanted to be in business. In what capacity, I wasn't sure. As a year 7, 8, 9 kid, I wanted to have my own business, and then started to gravitate towards more studies in year 11 and 12 around economics, and then ended up at uni, Bachelor of Commerce with an economics and accounting major, and really found the banking and economics subjects, financial markets, once I was sort of into that second, third year, getting into the meat of the degree, it was where I found my interest and the passion. And part of that was, you turn the news on, for example, you hear what's going on in the world, you hear them talk about the financial markets, share market update, and you go, wow, this is actually something in the real world and I'm studying it here every day, whereas some of the other subjects I used to find on the way through, you go, well, tell me what the relevance of trigonometry or some of these other concepts, like how's that going to impact me on a day-to-day? And as soon as I saw that link between the economic report on the news and what I was doing at uni on a day-to-day basis, I was like, right, that's it for me.
It's an interesting thing too. Like every news channel puts up how the share market's gone. I wonder how many people actually understand what that actually means.
Well, but look, I'll just take a step back for a minute. At your economic update lunch today, there was somebody there from a couple of people from KPMG.
Yep.
And one of them was talking about that this morning I've just been concluding interviews for graduates.
Yep.
And correct me, I think you heard this. He said that they had 100,000 or 200,000 applicants Australia-wide. And the thing that was causing him some stitch is that of the people he interviewed for this local office, and I think they only take 2 or 3, they couldn't find a graduate that had done accounting as a major.
Interesting you say that, because part of my region is Warrnambool. In my previous life at NAB, I was looking after the Warrnambool region as part of my domain as well. And recruiting was a real problem. And at a KPMG event recently, about a month ago, the Deakin people were there. And I, tongue-in-cheek, said, where are my graduates? I need some graduates from your commerce degree. He said, well, we don't have it anymore. I said, what do you mean? He said, people want to do, economics, accounting, these sort of staples, these technical
Technology,
skills
AI,
are seen
all
as a
of
bit
that.
boring, and there's a big trend to push between marketing, e-commerce, other sort of avenues. So they've even shut down their commerce degree at Warrnambool, is my understanding. I've got a bit of a theory, is that I'm a child of the last big recession we had.
Yeah.
Job security was something that was paramount. A lot of students went into the meat and potatoes, technical subjects, accounting, economics, law, etc. And the people that were seen to go into marketing and some of the other areas are more sort of soft skills and maybe not the security there. But we've had so much employment stability that I think young graduates coming out of school have had that. They haven't been impacted by some of the things that the people my age were. I mean, even young kids, you go back to the GFC was the last big destabilisation. We didn't have, even through the pandemic, we didn't have massive destabilisation in the finance industry. It was still pretty much full employment. So if you're a young person entering uni, why would you do something that might be, in quotes, perceived as a little bit boring? You're going to do something a bit more interesting. And I think now that's impacting the finance sector on the recruits that and the employment market that is available to us to bring into finance.
Well, the message I got out of the conversation was that if you are an accounting graduate, there's a job waiting for you.
You'll automatically
and
get
you're
a
in.
job.
Like, So interesting.
Tell me about Federation University, about your life there.
What an amazing place for me to go. So I was ready to go and do something different and step out of the household. And the environment there was fantastic because it was bigger than what I'd grown up in, but it wasn't too big that I'd get swallowed up in the crowd. So if I went to a Melbourne or an RMIT or a Monash, I'm pretty sure I would at that age, because I was only 17 entering uni, so I would have got swallowed up for sure. But to go to Ballarat, get to meet a cohort of people that were very similar interests and from a similar background to me, a lot of country towns, people go to that centre. It was big enough, but enough interest for me that it was piquing my interest. Then I was then meeting people that were even more similar to me, and my best friends really that I keep in touch with on a regular basis are still from those years.
That's good. It's and whilst you're at uni, did you have part-time jobs?
Absolutely.
What did you do?
I was the football writer for the Ballarat Courier.
That's different.
So I used to go out and cover a game each week in the Ballarat Courier, and then I was the editor of the student newspaper 1 year. That was very interesting, challenging role. But I'd come back to Point Lonsdale each year and pick up various things. So did some beach cleaning for the council 1 year. You go around and clean up after everyone. But also wrote for the Geelong Advertiser doing the local cricket. So,
cool, very good.
That was a career option for me. I was really seriously thought about going into a journalism career, but I did have a light bulb moment once. I was sitting at the Courier, 8 o'clock Saturday night. I was writing up a story on Match of the Day, and there's a couple of blokes over here. They're talking about their cat up a tree story they've got to write up, and I thought, for every Eddie Maguire out there that, has got this media mogul, there's a lot of people writing a story about cat stuck in a tree. So I thought, no, I think I might try and use my business degree.
So you finished uni. What was your first job out of uni?
First job out of uni, I worked at BP, actually, in the distributor account management team. That was a really interesting and a great first step in my career.
Was it a graduate program?
It was, and it was... what made it really interesting, for me, was just learning about being thrown right into a whole industry and a big global name and being at the customer face of it straight away. And the distributor business at that time was probably 1,000 distributors around the whole country, and we used to go out and see them, and they'd have relationships with country customers, and that was great to learn how that model went and learn from what impacts those businesses and how the fuel price and what affects their industry, but then learning on the inside from how a global giant works and seeing both sides of that. Ironically, where I am at the moment, we're going through a massive transformational change to set Bendigo up for its next phase of its evolution. And I think back to my first job in corporate, and BP was doing exactly the same thing. So that thing of change being a constant is just, it resonates.
Very good. And
why banking? How did that happen?
Yeah.
Or talking about our tipping points, what tipped you into banking?
Just that idea of how can I take my skills I've learnt in the oil industry and progress my career more. I felt like by stepping into a banking career, I had more control about what I would be going to do. BP at the time was actually starting to look inwardly a bit and shrink its footprint, and there was a lot of change in the organisation, and it was sort of cutting back on places like setting up a external company to run the sort of operations and all those sorts of things. So it was actually a shrinking business. So I joined CBA right when in the final sort of years of David Murray, when he was setting up the organisation for the future growth, and business banking at that time had only sort of been around for a few years. So it was an opportunity to get in at an entry point and grow with that business segment in that organisation that was just really set to boom.
And where were you based?
385 Burke Street, in the old State Bank,
the State Bank
head office.
Yes. Know it
well.
That's right.
We have 40 teller slots at the time, and the branch had.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
40 telescope. And so your progression from the CBA, what took you out of the CBA and to Bendigo?
So a bit of a journey. So CBA, I did my time there through commercial. 2006, actually stepped away, went and played cricket in England for a while, did a bit of travel there. My then girlfriend, who later became my fiancée and wife, came with me, so it was a fantastic time for us. Came back from there, a little bit of time at Bankwest, and then back into CBA, so I had a second stint, and it was amazing just being out of it for probably 18 months to 2 years, how much it had changed on the digital evolution and where that business was going. And then 2011, the time was right for me to sort of spread my wings a bit. I'd been commercial banking, working capital finance, and then I was approached to join HSBC. Okay. I thought, wow, international bank, let's get in there and see what that's all about. Again, working capital finance business I was in, so I just love that dynamic part of working with businesses and, you know, their strategy, their growth plans, how can we facilitate it? So it's an extension of what I enjoyed, but with a cross-border element, which was pretty exciting.
Interesting.
Just go back to cricket. Did you play minor counties?
Oh no, not that.
Level?
No, let's call
But
it. Let's call it better than village, but not too.
I bet you have a few stories to tell about that episode in your life. Yeah.
It's interesting. What made you take a year off? What made you think I need to go and play cricket?
It had always been a dream to do it.
Okay.
And then I actually started doing a master's degree, and it was like an accelerated program that was joint between Federation Uni and Gordon.
Yep.
And it was done here at Geelong at Eastern Gardens at the conference centre there. And whilst doing that program, it gave me an opportunity to reflect on where I was at in my career and my life. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to be 30. If I'm going to do it now. It's going to be do it. And my wife, she was working at Grant Thornton at the time, and they actually wanted some of their staff to take leave because they were sort of just, you know, trying to keep an eye on the cost line. So we said, well, you've got the leave available. I'm ready to do it. Let's go and do it.
That's fantastic. Great experience.
Yeah, and the plan was to come back, work a year, then go again, and then a little thing called the GFC hit, and that blew up those aspirations.
Have you got any children?
2 children, 2 boys,
How old?
8 and 10.
So you're in sport by default now because you're taking them everywhere.
Taking them everywhere.
They play
doing
cricket?
a lot. They play cricket, so
cool.
sharing coaching duties. It's been a fantastic journey to see them grow and just how they just enjoy it so much. They love being with their friends. They're a really good group of kids. And first game of footy tomorrow, we start up again.
Who are they playing for?
Play for Newtown, so under 12s and under 9s.
Well, I'm going to my first game tomorrow for one of my grandkids for St Joey's, under 10s.
Under 10s, so we might cross paths.
We might.
During
That's
the
not spectators abusing each other. Is that right?
Well, I'll be umpiring most likely. I enjoy doing that, so you might be getting stuck into me when I've got a whistle.
Let's get into some serious business now.
So what took you to the Bendigo Bank?
Bendigo Bank. I spent 7 years at NAB after HSBC, and I've always wanted to work for a not-for-profit. I have an extensive background in working with community sporting groups and the Lonsdale Golf Club redevelopment, and you work for a Big Four bank or a major corporate like HSBC, it's amazing helping customers, but there is a de-linking sometimes from, you feel like I could maybe do a bit more. The Bendigo's values around what it puts back into community organisations, whether that be through the community bank boards or direct sponsorship and support of organisations, to me aligns with my personal values, whilst I can also use my skill set to contribute to Bendigo. So I feel like it's a really, there's a lot of synergy for me in my values and the organisation's values.
And I should declare that I on the board of Benefit Geelong, which is the Bendigo Bank in Geelong's community connection. And if you bank with the Bendigo Bank, a percentage of your interest can be allocated to projects around Geelong. And the community banks do the same thing. And it's no cost to the individual. So it's a money donated out of the bank.
And we saw a prime
based on what you do.
We just saw a prime example, or heard a prime example of that
Andrew
at lunch
Schwabel.
with Andrew Schwabel, who was the CEO of the
Geelong
Food Relief Centre, and they benefit greatly by the organisation both of you are connected to, that helped them enormously with that gift or grant.
A grant.
A grant you gave them.
His freezer compressor had broken down and they needed $14,000 to fix it, and a phone call and it was fixed. So that was very good.
Yeah. And then just this week, Lara District Community Branch, donation of $40,000 to the Hope Bereavement Foundation.
I saw that. That's a great effort.
What an outstanding effort.
Yep.
And that, if you think about some of the sort of mindfulness concepts around helping people and sort of being gracious about what you have as an individual, and then you see, and then working for an organisation that can help people that are a little bit more unfortunate, it's very motivating and very satisfying to be able to contribite to that in a small way.
All right,
So what's
Tim.
your role, Tim, at the Bendigo Bank? What do you do?
So as regional manager for Vic West, lots of client-facing contact. Love getting out there and talking to customers and checking in with them, how they're travelling, what's their strategic plan, what are their objectives, how are they going to get there, what challenges do they face, and what risks do they face if it doesn't go well. How can we help them with that? Got a team of 10 bankers, 4 here in Geelong, 4 in Ballarat, 2 in Warrnambool, but we also cover out to Horsham, Portland, Hamilton,
Okay,
and
big spread.
Big
Yep.
spread, Western
Yep.
District, and we work closely with our rural bank colleagues. So we're more business, trading businesses, investors, developers, etc., and the rural bank, which is part of our group, are more the farm gate.
Yep.
So it's a good sort of, we've got a good separation. We know how we can stay our lane, support our customers best, and they can support
As a
theirs.
business banker, and most businesses in Australia are small businesses, I guess from your point of view, where do small business owners, I'm talking small business owners who are maybe turning over $5 to $20 million, because they are small businesses.
Yep.
Where do you think they fall down in the way that they approach banks and the relationships between banks and those business owners?
Firstly, I think I need to put my position forward on what I think about small business, and really it is the heartland of what makes our economy work, that and primary producers. So I've got a lot of respect for people who start their own business or take on the family business and take on risk and employ people. I think a challenge for them at the moment is, do they have the opportunity to carve time out to spend time on their business and get out of that day-to-day where they're just trying to get through that day or that week. Next thing you know, 6 months, 12 months is gone. What's my strategic plan? Am I working with my accountant advisors to set my balance sheet up for growth, if that's my ambition? Or am I using my accountant, for example, just to do my stat accounts and tick that box off and get it done? Is my business structure through trusts, etc., set up to facilitate growth, or is it an asset protection strategy? Is it set up to minimise tax? Do I want to build my personal wealth vehicles through residential property, or do I want to keep it in the balance sheet so I'm facilitated for growth? So I think a challenge for small business with, if you go back 5 years, 2019, economy was just ticking along, then we had a pandemic, and they're coming out of it, high inflation environment, high cost of borrowing. There's been so much on their plate that I wouldn't be surprised if it's been difficult for some small business owners to even look strategically at their business once or twice in the last 5 years. And the ones that can spend time on that and work with us at that and articulate what their strategy is, then we're in a better position to support them. But if customers want growth and they need finance to do that, we need to show that we can support that through cash generation. And if that's not there, because it's being generated but then going out to other parts of the group, it makes us harder harder for us as a financier to support them as much as we'd like to.
It's an interesting comment because even though this recording is in the future, a couple of weeks ago I was a presenter in Geelong at the AICD breakfast, which was about family businesses, and my part of that presentation was advisory boards for family-owned businesses, because the stats say that only 12% of family-owned businesses survive to the third generation. And I'm one of 3 presenters, and we're absolutely adamant that those that understand and can embrace an advisory board type scenario are so much more successful than those that don't. Do you come across that as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's just an advisory board function, but even that local accountant in any market that's doing the stat accounts, if that service is utilised to spend some time on strategy and what's the rainy day scenario, can we cope with that? And that's why I want my people, every time we talk to a customer and say, well, what are your goals? What's your strategy?
Yep.
What challenges do you foresee? And if there's a major risk event, what's the worst case scenario in your business? Have you got that money aside, or do you have access to other capital to help support that? Because the business environment is changing so quickly. If you think about AI development, tech, other matters that go on, that it's very hard to do that 5-year business plan. You need to be quite nimble, and your market can be gone very quickly, whether that be by either a change in your industry, or it might be regulatory framework. It could be, we've seen customers have export bans put on them, which all of a sudden creates a massive problem.
Yep.
So how can you navigate out of that? And are you the more businesses are thinking about that ahead of the game, then they're going to be better set up to ride that sort of roller coaster.
So folk listening who want to talk to a Bendigo Bank business banker, how do they go about it?
They can just come straight to me. LinkedIn, I'm on there. My
You're
bankers are on LinkedIn. Through the call centre, through the website. There's lots of ways to connect with us.
And the website, www.bendigobank.
Just Google Bendigo Bank.
Google Bendigo
and
Bank.
You'll navigate the way to business banking online inquiry form, and it will land on us and pick up the phone call.
And I must admit, I've met a number now of the business bankers here. They're all good folk.
And Mark,
Nice folk.
Mark, I was just spark went off my brain. I have got a brain, by the way.
Very good.
Do you recall that you and I presented to a team of
We did
business
too.
bankers at Bendigo Bank?
We did.
And spoke about our observations of how small business operates.
Yes, that's right. We
That
did too.
just came to mind.
That was a few
forgot-
years ago now,
I've
wasn't
forgotten
it?
all about that.
We're all intertwined.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Great
It's been
journey.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the chat.
Good, and appreciate the invitation to your economic update today.
Thank you.
Pleasure.